I'm Bishop Peter Hickman, and I'm sitting here with my good friend and sister in faith, Kandy Pouget. And we're here to talk about a few things about Kandy's life's journey and all the things that has happened in her life, especially in recent years. And we're happy that you can join us for this conversation. And I think that you will be very inspired to hear from this wonderful sister in Christ who has had a tremendous journey of faith and has discovered the reality of God hidden within her own life. So, Kandy, I welcome you here.
Thank you very much, Father Peter. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I'm very pleased that you're here today.
You.
It's always good to be in your presence, Kandy.
Well, thank you. I feel the same about you.
Well, you inspire me.
Oh, thank you.
And so tell me, Kandy, where were you born?
I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. Are you familiar with Cincinnati, Ohio?
I've actually heard of this place.
Yes, you have.
I was also born in Cincinnati, Ohio. And in fact, we in our friendship, we learned that not only were we born in the same city,
but in the same hospital.
Yeah,
Yes.
that hospital was
Christ Hospital.
Christ Hospital, which I believe was a Methodist hospital at the time in Cincinnati.
I don't know, but I can't imagine that it was a Catholic hospital.
No.
Because my mother would not have gone there if it were a Catholic hospital.
Oh, she would not.
Not to be trusted, these Catholics.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that would change for you.
Yes, that would change dramatically for me.
And so you were baptized.
I was baptized Methodist.
Okay.
And interestingly, my godfather is a Jewish cantor.
Oh, really?
Yes, which is kind of unusual.
Yeah, well, I've never heard of that
I
before.
know.
That's interesting. So you were sponsored to become a member of the Methodist Church through baptism, Christian baptism, and your sponsor was a Jewish cantor.
Yes, he was.
Well, it sort of corresponds with the fact that you now believe in a Savior who also was Jewish.
Yes, that's true.
So somehow there's a consistency.
I
in
like
all
that, yes.
Yeah. And did you grow up practicing your Methodist faith, or?
No, it was kind of here and there. We moved around a lot, and no, there was not much. Well, I can say there was really no religious training as I grew up. That was just a subject that just never entered the conversation.
So you didn't grow up in a home that was practicing a particular faith.
Exactly. Yes.
So you weren't a part of a church-going family.
No, not at all. No.
So, and in those years, what did you think when you did think about God? What did you think about it?
I don't remember. I don't remember even thinking about God when I was a child.
So as a child, and then as an adult.
And as an adult, I didn't think about him much. And when I went through difficult times in my during my lifetimes, difficult periods, and people would say, are you religious? Do you have faith to help you through this? And I had to say no, because I felt I didn't, although I have always felt that there was some kind of religious feeder inside of me.
Yeah, but it was never really expressed or thought about much in most of your adult life.
No. There was a movie with Ingrid Bergman when I was a little girl, and she was a Catholic nun who went in and saved a orphanage full of children in.
Oh, yes. What movie was that? She was a Chinese
She was-
missionary or something?
Was it that
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I saw the movie, but I can't remember the title of the movie.
well, for 2 or 3 weeks after seeing that movie, I too wanted to be a Chinese missionary and save those children. But I never took any steps towards it except to see the movie again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
So that was pretty much the extent of your religious.
That was my training, yes.
Life. Well, now you married at a very young age,
I married at a very young age.
and you had how many children?
I had 4 children.
And who are they?
My oldest child was a male, and we named him Kelly because that was a family name. And in those days, Kelly was a boy's name.
Yeah.
And then came Kevin, and then came Misty and Heather.
So you had a good symmetry there in your family. 2 boys.
2 boys, 2
and
girls.
2 girls.
And everybody was very, very busy and very active, of course.
Yeah.
You have children, you know what I'm talking
Yes,
about.
I do.
Peter.
I do understand. I understand that. So, so you were doing what people did in those days.
Yes.
You were a woman who took care of the home, raised 4 kids.
Right,
And,
yes.
and did you bring the kids to church or anything like that? Were they raised in any faith?
Well, at one time, we were involved in the Unitarian Church,
Oh, okay.
which, what I liked about the Unitarian Church was that it didn't seem to be so anti-women. That was my big thing about church early on. I rebelled that leaders couldn't be women. Of course, that's changed now quite a bit.
Well, and that's a good thing, don't you think?
Oh
Yeah.
my.
So you were part of that generation that
I was.
of women who began to think
Yes.
outside of the box you've been put in as a woman.
Don't
And,
keep me in this box. I'm not staying in this box.
Yeah.
Yes.
So so the beginnings of civil rights, which then led to the women's movement
Right.
for greater equality in society. So
Exactly.
you were part of that generation.
I was.
And so then your children grew up, and you were living in Southern California.
I was living in Southern California. We were living in Yorba Linda,
Yeah.
which is a small community in Southern California.
I remember Yorba Linda. I grew
Yes.
up in Fullerton,
I
California, so
know
not
you
far
did.
away.
Yes, not far away.
And I had a lot of friends that lived in Yorba Linda.
Mhm.
So it was a much more rural area back then.
It was a wonderful place to raise children. It was just great.
Yeah, the birthplace of Richard Nixon, yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah,
That's true.
I think his house is still there.
It is still there. It
Yeah.
is still there.
Well, now then, as you were raising your family and as your children got older, you were touched with a terrible tragedy. Can you talk about that?
Oh,
for
yes,
us?
yes, thank you, yes. Kevin always wanted to be Evel Knievel, if you're old enough to remember.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
the daredevil.
The daredevil,
Yeah.
jumping over canyons and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And of course, I still have great sympathy for his mother. She's still alive, God bless her. That must have been difficult. I know it was difficult having Kevin as a child. And he raised, Kevin raised motocross, which is motorcycles gone amok. It's kind of a hot and heavy kind of thing. And I didn't particularly like him being in the sport, but the more I would say, I don't think this is a good idea, the more he would determine to be involved in the sport. Yes.
Adolescent boy, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If your mother tells you you can't do it, then all the more reason to do it.
Right, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
So he decided then he wanted to be a pilot. And of course, we were very middle class. My children, of course, had no money at all, like, you know, like any kids. They were in high school, they had no money. So I told him that he could take flying lessons if he paid for them, because there's no way he could possibly pay for them. Well, of course, Kevin was very good with money, and he figured out a way to pay for them. So he took flying lessons, and he got his private pilot's license in October of 1979. And his birthday and Kelly's birthday were just a couple of days apart. So they used to, because they had no money and they were both interested in the restaurant business, they used to take one another out to a particularly special restaurant for dinner.
Yeah.
Because unless it were a special occasion, they couldn't possibly afford it.
Yeah.
And they decided that they would fly to Santa Barbara, not that there's a special restaurant in Santa Barbara, but because they wanted to eat at the airport there. They have a cafe at the airport.
At the airport in Santa Barbara.
And
yeah.
Santa Barbara, yes. And there's nothing quite like going to work the next day and say, oh gosh, I'm really tired. Last night we flew to Santa Barbara for dinner.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that intrigued both of them. So they left to go to Santa Barbara, and Misty and I, my daughter Misty and I, had gone to Hollywood to see the 20th Century, which was a play, was playing at the time at the Dorothy Chandler. And I had a very distinctive car. It was a little red MG, so it was obvious, my car. And as we drove home along the freeway, there was a small plane above us,
Yeah.
and it kind of tilted a little bit.
Yes.
And Misty said, "Oh my gosh, do you think that's Kevin and Kelly?" I said, "Well, probably not, but now I think it was, because I want to think
Yeah.
it was."
Right.
So Misty and I came home. We went to bed, and the next morning we got a very early phone call. It was Kevin's work, and they said, "Where's Kevin?" And of course, he was supposed to be at work. And then we called Kelly's work, and he wasn't at work either. So it was immediately known that we had a problem.
Okay, they were both missing.
They were both missing, and that continued for 13 days.
13 days?
Yes,
You
yes.
had no idea where they were?
No, nothing. So you just try to remember to inhale and then exhale. And,
Yeah.
you know.
So I can imagine your anxiety building during this
Oh, yes.
almost 2 weeks.
Yes.
And then what happened on the 13th day?
Some hikers were clearing a fire trail in the mountains above Ojai,
Yes?
and they found the crash.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the plane went down, but no one knew that it went down?
No. And at the time, for their birthdays that year, we had given them necklaces with a K on them.
Yeah.
Which that was the hot fad at the time.
Yeah, K for...
A K for Kelly and K for Kevin.
Kevin.
And the fire was so hot that all they found in the wreckage was one K, pretty mangled. So the boys were Boy Scouts at the time, so one of the Boy Scout fathers had another K made And so I've worn this since the crash. One of these went through the crash.
So one of those Ks that you're wearing now
Yeah.
went down with the plane.
Right,
And,
right.
Oh, I can't imagine. It's hard for me to imagine or comprehend what that must have felt like for you to receive that news.
It's devastating, and it is devastating, but at the time, I kept thinking, I'm going to get through this, I'm going to get through this, I'm going to get through this. And of course, as I said previously, I had no religious training, so it isn't as if I felt there was someone sitting at my side helping me through it.
Right.
If I felt that, I wasn't aware of it, but evidently there was.
There was someone there now that you look back.
Yes, there was someone there.
And I think that this is a parent's worst nightmare, to lose a child, because you expect to outlive your children.
Yes.
And to lose one of your children.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but to lose two at the same time.
Yes.
Both your sons.
Yes.
Taken from you in an instant.
Right. Yeah. Boom, like that. Yeah.
And so with this tremendous loss and having to get through that, you were determined to get through it. You were not going to allow this to keep you down, so to speak.
I wasn't. We attended a bereaved parents group, and there were parents in there who had lost children years before, and they were still, that was their main focus in life. And I was determined not to make this my main. I kept thinking there must be something more than that. I'm not going to focus on this. I just know that isn't why I'm here.
So you were not going to allow that experience to define the rest of your life.
Exactly.
You were going to go on living.
Exactly, yes.
Despite this, the enormity of this loss.
Right.
My mother lost a child.
I know.
And she lived a very full life since then, but I think that to this day, she's now 86 years old.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, I think there's a part of her that still grieves.
Oh, yeah.
You never get over that.
No, you don't.
You carry on with life, but you never get over a loss.
I like to say it's like one morning you awaken and you're blind. You've not been blind, all of a sudden you're blind. You don't really get over being blind, but you learn to live with it. You learn Braille or do whatever it is to help you get through life.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is very true. It is when a parent loses a child, that it never leaves you.
That's true. It never leaves you.
That,
And one of the interesting things about being a bereaved parent is, I've forgotten the statistic now, but something like 87% of all bereaved parents' marriages end in divorce.
yes, I'm not sure of this statistic either, but I've heard that kind of thing. And so your husband, the father of Kelly and Kevin, and you, this was an enormous
and this
happened to your marriage, and so your marriage wasn't able to survive such a traumatic event. It wasn't strong enough.
Right, exactly.
And so you that marriage ended.
Yes.
But you were still relatively a young woman.
Yes, I was. I was 40-something, I think. Yeah.
So, and you fell in love again?
Well, somebody came back into my life.
Yeah.
A young man that I dated in high school.
Yeah.
He was my high school sweetheart.
Oh, okay.
And so he called me and said, "I'm so sorry to hear about the boys. How are you doing?" And then a couple of years later, he was in Orange County. He lived in Ventura County at the time. And he said, "I'm going to be in Orange County. Would your husband mind if I took you to lunch?" Well, by that time, my husband was doing God knows what he was doing at lunch.
Yeah.
So I was free to say, yes, that was great. And so then I dated this man for 5 or 6 years, and then we married.
Wow.
And one of the reasons that we had broken up was because he's a Catholic.
Oh, this is the man you were dating, that you dated at one time in high school.
Yes.
And your husband's name is Philip. Is who you're referring to?
Yes.
Phil.
Yes.
And so one of the reasons you broke up when you were in high school was because he was Catholic.
He was Catholic, and that was just too much for my family.
Yeah.
Poor Grandma Webster, she liked him. He was a nice kid. She always used to say he's a nice kid, but he's a Catholic. So
Right.
it just wasn't worth fighting for. So that's one thing that broke us up in high school. But of course, Grandma Webster was long since dead at that particular
Yeah, and times have changed.
Yeah, and times have
and
changed.
people don't think that because one is Catholic, one is Protestant, that should be a reason not to get married.
Exactly.
There might be a few of those people around.
Oh, yes, yeah.
But attitudes in general have really loosened up
Fewer
about
and
that.
fewer,
Yeah.
we hope, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So Phil Pouget comes back into your life
Phil Pouget comes back.
after you've had this tremendous loss in your life, and
Right.
your marriage was coming to an end. And so you started dating, and you dated for a number of years, and you finally got married.
We finally got married, and Phil's a wonderful person, but he
Yes.
has one tiny fault. He's a procrastinator.
Oh.
So
Okay.
I knew there was something missing in
Yes.
his life. So I said, if you find a church, I will go to church with you. Thinking, as a procrastinator, he's never going to find a church.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm home free. So because I certainly wasn't going to join the Catholic Church.
Right. Yeah. And so even though your grandmother had long since passed, she still had her influence on you.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
You were not going to. You might go to church, but you're definitely not going to become a Catholic.
Definitely not.
Yeah. And in the meantime, God is laughing.
Yeah, exactly. Saying, oh, don't be so sure.
Yeah. So so Phil had your second husband felt a need to be a churchgoer.
Yes.
And to go to a Catholic church would have made sense for him. But you were not so sure about that, but you were willing to, at any other church, you said you would go with him.
Right.
He wanted to go to church. And you were counting on the fact that Phil, the procrastinator, would never get around to it, and you would have free weekends from now until
Right, exactly,
ever. Yeah.
yes. I thought that was very clever at the time, and now I think it's extremely clever, but I didn't know it at the time.
So your words would come to you because he would follow up on that.
Yes, except I like to think that my words have come back to bless me.
Well, yes.
So he drove me into this small, wonderful church. And we walked in, and of course, I was like this the whole time. And we sat down, and the father started speaking. And I thought, oh dear, this is not what a Catholic church should be. That priest isn't saying what I thought he would say. And it was so different from any Catholic church or anything I knew about the Catholic Church. I kept thinking, oh dear, Phil is never going to come back to this church because it's not really Catholic.
Yeah. And the church you're referring to is St. Matthew Church.
Yes, it is.
Right here.
And the priest I'm referring to is you, Father Peter.
Is me, Father
yes.
Peter.
Right.
Yeah, and I do remember, I believe it was in the year 2000, did you come?
Yes.
And it was during the season of Advent.
Advent, yes, it
which
was.
is a very beautiful time of year to be
Exactly.
coming back to church.
Yes.
And I believe I was preaching on John the Baptist.
I believe you were,
Yeah.
yes.
Somehow that touched your heart.
Oh, tremendously, tremendously, Father Peter. Tremendously.
And John the Baptist turns out has become your patron saint.
Yes, yes.
You love the message of his life.
Oh, I do, yes.
And what about John the Baptist that stood out for you?
Well, I like the fact that he was so basic. And you know, I felt he, more than the other saint that I knew of, which I of course didn't know many of them, but he had such a basic message, rather like Christ. The message is love. Don't get it all combobulated with 80,000 other messages. It's love, like LOVE. Yeah, it's that simple. And there's nothing more difficult than love your neighbor and love God. And it's that simple.
Yeah. And John the Baptist really, it is a very simple message, and he, in his preaching, he talks about the importance of sharing with those in need.
Yes, he does.
And that's been a big part of your life.
Oh, absolutely.
You've always had this kind of concern and this passion to help the poor.
Yes.
And,
going back to Ingrid Bergman and the movie and rescuing the orphanage full of children, yes.
Too bad we don't remember the title of that movie.
The House of
something. Well,
7 Rooms or something.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to look that up.
Yeah, we'll look it up. Yes.
Oh, very good.
Yes.
Well, this is
yes.
good. And so then after that, you became quite the churchgoer.
Oh.
Yeah, I would open the doors of the church, and there's Kandy
coming
in the church.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
And then you took the inquiry class and went through the process of studying the faith, and then you were confirmed in this church.
I was confirmed, and that was such an important day to me, and that was so fulfilling. And at that point, I kind of felt like, this is where I'm home. This is wonderful. Yes. And also the church did for me a tremendous service in the fact that it really fueled the helping the poor.
Yeah.
Because it was an outlet for me to put all of that in action.
Well, and you've really been a catalyst for this faith community in raising our consciousness to that part of the gospel that calls us to care for the poor. And you've implemented a couple of things here that brought to the community. At every 10:30 Mass on Sunday morning, all the children and all the families, they bring food up for the poor. It's been incorporated in our liturgy, and this has been an ongoing part of the life of St. Matthew's.
And the food, the amount of food we get is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think you'll be forever known here at St. Matthew's as the peanut butter. Peanut butter.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Because talk a little bit about the peanut butter.
Oh, okay. Peanut butter is my favorite food to give the poor. Although there are children, of course, that have problems with peanut butter, the good side of peanut butter is so fulfilling. First of all, a little kid, a 4-year, any child who can undo a lid and do it back up can get dinner for the rest of his or her siblings. And there are many 3-year-olds who are getting dinner for the siblings. And they can do that. Tuna is also a tremendous thing to give a child because it has such a high protein level.
Yeah.
But anytime you deal with a can of tuna, you're also dealing with that
Sharp edge.
And that just gives me the willies to even think about it. A peanut butter doesn't have that. If you put the lid back on the peanut butter, the roaches that are in your house, and they will be in your house if you are in that, that group of children to which I'm referring.
Yeah, the poor,
Yeah, the poor, yeah, there's going to be.
the living
roaches,
condition, yeah.
all kind. And the cockroaches can't get back in the peanut butter. So just, if the child remembers to put the lid on, then the peanut butter is safe for the next meal. And and most kids like it.
Well, it's been a very successful program, the peanut butter drives here at St. Matthew's. And so you were actively engaged in volunteering your time and doing things here for the church, and then you retired, both you and Phil.
Right.
And were still very actively engaged in the church, but then your life was struck with illness. Could you talk a little bit about that, Kandy?
Yes. I have cancer. I have stage 4 liver cancer. And not to be cavalier or anything, but I'm old. I'm 67 or ever how old I am. And I have such faith. I was talking to my sister just yesterday, and we talked about the fact that how it would be when Daddy, obviously her father too, when Daddy came to call for me and get me, to take me to the other side. I am so focused on that.
Yeah.
And I know it will happen. And I have so many people in my life that I'd like to see again, like Kelly and Kevin.
Yeah, yes, I would imagine.
Yes, like Daddy and Mommy, yes.
Yeah, so
yes.
you have a great reunion you're looking forward to.
We will have a great reunion, yes.
And this is something that your faith has given to you.
Oh, absolutely.
God has given you this assurance
yes.
that there's something even better that awaits you.
Yes, yes. And yes, you're right, God has given it to me, but you really are the one that gave me that.
Well, I'm happy that I happen to have been the one that got to be the instrument that God used to inspire you and to.
Thank you.
Through the means through which you received this wonderful faith that has made such a profound difference in your life.
Oh, it's wonderful. Life is so much easier when you're a Christian. Life is so much easier when you have Jesus at your side or John the Baptist. It's just,
yes.
Why not go the easy way?
Wow.
Yes, right.
Well.
Yeah, you could fight, but go the easy way.
Well, if at this point, if you were to say anything, what would you like to say to people? What would you like to leave for them at this moment? As they are now listening and watching this video, what would you like to impart to them?
I think that the message here is just that I said that the easy way is the Christian way.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe that. And I don't mean to discount any other religion. For you, it may be the Buddhist way or
Right.
another way. But go through life with someone at your side, and that will make life so much easier, and it will make it fun.
Mm.
And no matter what path stumbles come in my path, I know that I have so many people on my side.
Well, and Jesus is with you, and I can see that.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And
yes.
And with Jesus, the communion of saints. We're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses.
Well,
and
yes.
and Kandy, you are a saintly woman, and you have borne witness to many of us here at St. Matthew's of the faith that you have and that faith which produces such wonderful love for others in this life, and it is giving you hope for that life which is yet to come.
Yes.
So thank you for giving witness to that and sharing your love and your faith and your hope with those of us here at St. Matthew Church.